welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands Quindy, who has expelled the gremlins, along with Justin and John, who probably were the gremlins, let's face it. Anyway, here we are, and today we're working on our wizard, our purple and orange wizard. Yes, I thought you'd like that one, Quindy. Woohoo! I'm getting better with my intros. No more of this boring stuff. Hello, hello, hello. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good middle of the night, depending on where you are. Yeah. Super. Awesome. We have our Damras, who we are going to be... I want to block in those scrolls. For one thing, the little blob on this one is annoying me. So, hey, Pendrick. Yes, indeedy. We are without gremlins. We are, however, with puppy pictures. Or at least we are with general puppy pictures and one specific puppy picture. Hold on. Got to get back to them because Bridget was giving me resources, things to go buy, because I'm in hardcore what I need to buy for this puppy thing. So the cutest one, the absolute cutest, is Zammy napping with her head over her puppies, all protective and stuff. So that is the cutest. Like, when you have puppies, this is the cute you get. You get your mama dog being the best mama ever and putting her head over all the cute puppies. She's like, these are my puppies. Nothing will hurt them. Yeah, she's a good mama. Zammy's a very good mama. So that was the very cute. And then there is a shot with Zammy stretched out with all the little puppies attached. All the little puppies. And they're getting bigger already. So they are growing like little weeds. So pretty soon, like seriously, like in another week, it's going to be hard for them all to fit. Morning, Daffodweir. We're sharing puppy pictures with Papa Mama. And then I have one last cute for you. It's not one of our cutes, but it is a cute. Is Bridget got Blue Boy to snuggle with her today. So there's my friend Bridget, and in the crook of her arm, there is a little Blue Boy. He's one of the solid black boys. His name is Percy. I'm ignoring it, Grey Wolf. I cannot deal with it right now. I have to deal with the end of my Patreon. I'm very much a person who cannot stress out about too many things at once, or I will have a meltdown. And so don't even ask. It's not on my my docket today. Not anything I'm going to deal with today. It's the last day of the month. I have stuff I need to get done. So yes, puppy snuggles indeed. Much puppy snuggles. That's also the fun. See, this is the easy time. No news. You won't get any news until later in probably next week. So yeah, just don't ask, because this is going to stress me out if you ask. If I have news, I will share it. Otherwise, we're going to happy puppy time. We're in happy puppy time. Yeah. Alrighty, so I am going to grab my awesome Nodbone color, because it's the closest thing. I always used to use Stained Ivory for scrolls, always started with Stained Ivory. Now that Stained Ivory is canceled, Nodbone is the next best thing. So get yourself a bottle of this, or get yourself a fast palette of this. I think it's Adventure Colors, don't remember. But it's one of those things, and it's a really, really useful color whenever you are doing parchment and books. It's also obviously good for bone if you're doing a warmer bone. It is also an excellent base coat if you are doing a warm kind of linen-y white. It is your best option for that as well. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just gotta focus. Like, I have my personality is such that I very much need to focus on one thing if I'm gonna be productive. I can be super productive on one thing, or I can be not terribly productive on many things. I'm starting to learn this. Oh no, the cone of shame, Agent Marvel. You can't actually tell. Mistimp, when you have when you've got smooths and plushes in the litter, you really can't tell till 5 weeks. You can start to get a feel at 4 weeks, but you really can't tell. So right now, the coats indicators that you're seeing could be indicative of a longer coat. Like Tina, our breed founder, she would say that, you know, if a coat was wavy, it was usually a plush, but even she said you couldn't really tell. All of these puppies are plush. Some of them might have a little bit of the Wetterhound coat going on, which is a bit shorter coat, but it's still a long coat. So we really don't know what to expect. This is the exciting thing about this litter. And we won't really be able to tell, like, we'll be able to... It's really dicey. It's really dicey, even with having raised 2 litters myself, to tell whether you're going to get a shorter, when you've got all long coats, if you're going to get some shorter long coats and some longer ones. It's really hard to tell. Like, I would have thought that Astra from our first litter would have a super long coat. She was really, really soft as a baby, and she looked really fluffy. But it turned out that she had what we call the smush coat, which is the shorter long coat. It's Shiloh appropriate, actually. It's much easier to care for. And Jax, who was one of our other pups in that litter, Ajax, he had a super plush long coat like Leo. So none of these puppies should have the super long coat. Unless we got some recessive genes in there. Because both parents have a shorter, proper plush coat. It's just that Floyd had more of a Wetterhound, which means wavy. They had a wavy coat. So some of the puppies with the crimpy coats could be expressing that they're going to be like Wetterhound puppies and have the wave as adults. Maybe not. Yeah, my animals always got around the inflatable donut. I don't know, maybe my dogs had long necks. Blazy was like, donut schmonut. We had to get her a full cone. All right, I'm going to get 4 drops of gnawed bone. I'm going to put 1 drop of water in it. This should be sufficient to base coat our scroll so I can stop staring at the blorf that I made on it, which is annoying me. Yeah, we won't get any truly curly coats. The poodle is that curly coat is a dominant gene, and we dropped that out because Floyd doesn't have it. So essentially there are other puppies, Floyd's siblings, many of them have the poodle coat. But Floyd was the one without the poodle coat and without the beard. So he actually, this outcross is going to be closer to breed type. Yeah, I don't think the vets really use the inflatable donut, but you can buy one, Agent Marvel. I think the cones are just cheaper for the vets to keep in stock, which kind of makes sense. Hold on, let me show you. Oh, puppy shopping. My Amazon is open and I'm dangerous. I'm armed and dangerous when my Amazon is open on dog supplies, guys. Let me see. Okay, so... the Dutch Waterhound is actually the Frisian water dog, and let me get some images. I'll show you the coat. So the coat is crimpy and curly, kind of like that. It's really wavy on some of them, and some of them have less of that. Let me see if I can find this one's more wavy. So this is the dog, one of the outcrosses. So you can see it is definitely a wavy coat. So we'll see. But Floyd doesn't really have that. Like, he's got kind of halfway between that and a Shiloh coat. So Wetterhounds are actually pretty cool looking. I like them. They look like nice dogs. What we were really hoping to get from these, because the dog we used was half this and half poodle, but we were really hoping to get some of that broad head coming in. And they've got nice broad bodies too. They're stocky dogs, which we want as in a Shiloh. So yeah, they're good looking dogs. They're good looking dogs. And they are also pretty rare. They're a Dutch breed. I don't think they're the national breed of the Netherlands, but they were having, they weren't very frequent. And so, leaf punch. Yeah, leaf punches can be cool. I mean, Green Stuff World makes it one that has 4 different leaves, I thought. Yeah, cats don't do cheap, come on. But yeah, so the Wetterhound breed is one that really is very small, kind of like our breed. Like, their numbers have shrunk. They were originally, obviously, a water dog, a retrieving dog, but there isn't a lot of hunting in the Netherlands these days, and so their original purpose kind of, like, went down, and, you know, they just weren't that frequent, even though they're really cool dogs. So the Dutch Wetterhound Club of the Netherlands chose to outcross, and they did a couple of them actually. They did the standard poodle, which is the one we got in on, and they actually did a Labrador Retriever one. And I was more interested maybe in the Labrador Retriever one at first because the tails would be straighter because the Wetterhound has that curly poof tail. But yeah, the geneticist we were working with said the Wetterhound might be a better match, or sorry, the poodle might be a better match because it would be further away from our dogs genetically. All right, let me find, what brush do I want to play with today? Where is my Reaper brush? My Reaper brush is usually, these days, one of my nice base coating brushes. So we're going to use a Reaper Zero today. I'm glad I found this brush because it actually does have a very nice tip on it, and it's also a fuller bodied brush. You guys, I completed editing on my video for the my YouTube series. I did brushes this month, so you'll all get a big rundown all in one place on brushes. So all the stuff that I always talk about when I'm answering questions on this stream will be in one handy place, including talking about brush cleaners and conditioning. So, and all different types and shapes of brushes and yada, yada, yada. So anyway, that'll all be up on the YouTubes as a handy reference place. And yes, you can go, and if you have not followed me on my YouTube, if you have not subscribed to my channel, you should, because I'm doing at least one video a month, sometimes two, depends on how much time I've got. And I'm doing the fundamentals of miniature painting. So really just kind of stuff to start you out on the right track or to refresh you if you are an intermediate painter, but you kind of maybe self-taught yourself a lot, or you've like not touched in with your foundational stuff in a while and you want to make sure that or you're looking for new ideas and you're not sure about, you know, X or Y technique. So maybe I'll do layering next month. All right, so we're just going to get all that blocked in. We're going to see it. And chances are, remember, we're going to darken down this scroll a lot. I think I'm going to get some brown liner so I can do a spot wet blend on the back of this. And I am applying it pretty much in one sheet. You can see it's kind of irregular, and that's because the paint is more fluid, but that also means that it's going to flow all together in a nice even coat. Even if parts of it are a little thicker, they won't be globby, and that's the important thing here. Let me grab some brown liner. So I want to shade the part of this that's close to his body even before I start putting like weathering and darkening it in other ways. But yeah, please do go over and take a look at my YouTubes if you are kind of newer to the hobby. I hope it'll be valuable to you. I'm covering both techniques and supplies. So there's one on palettes and one on brushes. I think that's probably any other supplies. I'm going to like probably do just a one catch-all video on like things like pinning and lights and stuff like that. Yeah, as a self-taught person with miniature painting myself, I'm a very strategic mind. Like I really like to regiment things and to break things down. And so for me, it's valuable to get all this stuff kind of laid out in that fashion for other people like me. I still need to put up a playlist. It's on my to-dos. To brush up on. Ah ha 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 ha. I mean, I'll be full disclosure here, Corsair. I prefer the Aught 5. But for base coating and wet blending on bigger surfaces, the 0. So the 0 is kind of like standard size, but the Aught 5 is what I did every ounce of painting that I used to do when I was Reaper staff painter. The Aught 5, 0/5 was my workhorse brush. If you're looking for a good detail brush, the 0/10 is your brush. So just to be very, very clear, because I don't do details with this one, because it is a fuller belly brush, it's harder, and I talk about this on my new video, which will be out on the 1st, but it's harder or it takes you longer to unload a brush that's quite thick and has this big full belly. So it's not as good for detail work. It can just slow you down and feel frustrating. So I would not use this for details, but I do use it for blocking. I do use it for spot wet blends. I use it for all of that on 28 millimeters specifically. So just because a brush has a good tip doesn't mean it's necessarily the best for fine details. Now, that said, if you are working with thicker paint, that's why I say this is good for base coating. If you're working with thicker paint or you're working on a wet palette with thicker paint, then you want to use a brush like this, which has a thicker body and a good tip. Because with thicker paint, it's going to dry in your brush faster if you use a skinnier brush, because you haven't added as much water to it. It's the presence of water in the paint that lets it stay wet in the brush for longer. Remember that, guys. So if you're not using a lot of water because you're using a wet palette and your wet palette's pretty dry and you're using the paint pretty straight up like Sergio does, so that would be a reason to use the big brushes, like even the big like Raphael number 2, which is what Sergio tends to use, is, you know, something in that size range with a more full belly body, not with the really pointy tip. But if you use a well palette like me, or you are transitioning to the well palette because I just realized I am totally not in focus here, hold on. Or you're transitioning to the well palette because you already did your base setup with the wet palette and then you decided, oh, I'm going to switch to well for the fine detail, then you want to switch to a skinnier brush. The gray... Okay, so it depends on what you mean by alabaster white skin tone. Are you talking about an actual stone-like person? Because adding a gray in there is going to automatically make it look inhuman. Cairn stone is going to make it very, it's going to be very kind of yellow-gray. Have you looked up alabaster pictures? This is my question. So I'm going to just block that in, set it down. Dead Frankenstein type of character. White and translucent gypsum. Images. You'll want to go up with pure white. Ooh. So alabaster can have some brown in it. Can be quite warm. Quite warm. But can also be quite cold. What I'm seeing here is a little bit more of a brown tone. This is a little green for it. I would say, I mean, looking at it, I don't see that green. I see more of a brown. So I would probably use, yeah, it tends to definitely go more brown. So I think that if it were me, I would use bleached linen. I would bring everything up toward a bleached linen, which is still yellower, but, and I'd use maybe like a brown tone like desert stone. That's a hard call. I mean, if you want greenish, if you're looking for Frankenstein, then I wouldn't use alabaster as your thing, but then Cairn stone could work. And I would use a brownish gray maybe. I mean, anything can work. It's just gonna, you know, you could throw any combination of pale colors together. The question is, do you want it greenish? You know, when you pick your shadow color, especially, determine whether you want to go brownish, greenish, or grayish. It sounds like you want a gray shadow. Yeah, sizing guide, very important. Like, I had to ask a lot of questions about sizing on Rosemary Company because they have a lot of different series and the sizing is different. I usually tell people, like, order a 0 or 1 and you're usually going to be okay. But I also advise people to ask on, like, Discords and stuff for the best sizes for miniature painting. Because somebody out there will have used it. All right, I'm going to put another solid coat now that this is dry. More solid over the top. I do have a little bit of grit here. I think I got a little bit of just lint and stuff into this, a little bit of hairs. So I'm gonna take my knife and get those off. And go back over it. Oh, nose. But yeah, War Shadow, if I were you, I mean, I would maybe do a couple of different blends just on, like, watercolor paper. Like, I'd maybe do, like, the Cairn Stone blend with the gray and maybe the Cairn Stone with, like, a brown liner. And then maybe do, like, bleached linen with, you know, a brown liner or even a warmer brown. Yeah, if you're going to do a reddish dress, remember that any green in your skin tone will look a lot greener. Remember about that complementary color thing that happens. Whenever you are using a complementary color, even if it's desaturated, it will emphasize that. It will be stronger. So even if you think you're only got a little hint of green, I'm going to do a wet blend here. A little hint of green in what you're doing. If you use a red dress, it's going to get stronger. Always remember that. So you may end up being quite greenish, and if you don't care about that, then you're good. It's not Christmas paradox. It happens with all complementary colors. All complementary colors. So like if you were using an orangey, i.e. brown skin tone, and your dress was blue, you would get the same thing. Your skin tone would look a lot more brown. So it's actually not, I'm not talking about the Christmas thing where it just looks like Christmas. It won't ever look like Christmas, but as you're using such muted colors, but it will make the skin look a lot greener than maybe you wanted it to. So that's my point. Christmas paradox is just like you looking at a red and green model and thinking of Christmas. But when you're using muted colors, that's really not a danger at all. I've done red and green models that don't look at all like Christmas, just because I've used different greens and different reds. All right, so I put a bit of shading. You can see the shadow there on the inside of the scroll. I wanted it to be dark next to his body, and I did a bit of a wet blend to make that blend in. Oh no, the gremlins went to Guernica. They went to Scotland. Alrighty, now I want to also do a little bit of shading inside the curl of this. I'm just using brown liner. It makes a gray color when I mix it with the gnawed bone, but that's alright. For a general shadow, this is a lot like walnut, where I mentioned that walnut brown mixed with just about everything makes a good natural shadow. Brown liner is the same. We'll talk more about that in my Patreon PDF next month, which talks about mixing shadows. I am going to line a little bit here, just to bring in, again, that shadow. Might do a tiny wet blend just to darken that down, like so. You can see that. Grab a little bit more of the bone, do an additional wet blend. little one down there, and then we'll do another little wet blend. I'm really just grabbing tiny bits of the paint here and doing a very tiny, what I call a spot wet blend. It's essentially a shortcut wet blend, where I'm not blending the whole thing. I'm just blending a very specific area, which will help save you from, you know, getting your wet blends being hard to control. So if you notice that you're trying to wet blend a whole surface and that it's really frustrating you, try to just like paint your entire surface, paint in your shadow, paint in your highlight, and then do a little spot wet blend just in the little area between those things. There. Want a little bit more shadow around his hand though, right here. Putting it in quite heavy here, but then getting it a bit more that way. Get a little bit of a shadow up against the fingers, get a little darker in here. So just wet blending in a very small area. Which means you just want to use tiny little bits of paint on your brush. And so you can use a damp brush to feather this in. A little bit of shadow, 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 shadow. Make sure I missed some of my lining got eaten up here on this edge. Oh, it's right here. It's right. Quindy just linked to it right there in the chat. It's the second to the one above the bottom one. The bottom one is Instagram. The YouTube is the cut.ly. You can also just search painting big, 2 words, but it's right there linked in the chat. Quindy gave it to you. But yeah, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so everyone counts. Thanks everybody for everybody who has already followed me. All right, so we set up our big fat scroll, and we're definitely going to do a lot more to the big fat scroll to make it darker, because right now it's like, whoa, I'm a big fat scroll. Yeah, just like that. And but I want to block in some of these little scrolls down here too. Since I've got this color out, now we will be bringing in a lot more warm browns and reddish browns to make the scroll look interesting in the future, but for right now, we just want to get these guys kind of base coated because we got the color out, so let's just do it. Alrighty, so nice solid coat on there. We can go back in and hit the shadows in there in a moment. We also need to line around the outside of these guys. I like scrolls as a an addition on miniatures where they make sense, because they're another place you can throw a neutral, where you don't have to worry about what color to paint things. Pouches are fraught with peril because so many people think they have to paint them a bunch of different colors. I was looking at a model on a website yesterday that I was thinking of ordering, and the painted version just made me wince because they pretty much had like gone with all these different leather colors on the different leather parts of the model, and it was kind of a rogue type character, so I was wearing a lot of leather. But like the lower leggings were a yellow leather, and then the, you know, calf leg or the upper leggings were like an orangey leather, and it's like all these different leather colors that were really close together and weren't helping to like set off the details of the model at all, and it just kind of was a little bit frustrating for me. So the thing is, don't automatically go with a ton of different leather colors just because you can and you think that's what you should do, because there's a lot of leather. Try to keep yourself to a couple and alternate them, and you're going to have a lot better results. And try to keep them also farther apart on the color wheel. So try not to use a yellowy leather and an orangey leather right next to each other. Try to go for a dark leather and a light leather, or a reddish leather and a light yellow leather, or something like that. Oh my god, a CNOT raid. Wow. Well, now I feel like you've stumbled onto us in the very beginnings of our painting journey on this one, CNOT. Thanks for the raid. So we should show people a bunch of stuff that we paint on this show. For those who have never met us before, I'm Anne. I work for Reaper Miniatures. I paint. I made the Master Series paint line that Reaper makes. So like the Pathfinder set, I made that, and the MSP set. I spent 15 years mixing every batch. But now I live with my current fiance out here out west. So now I just stream for Reaper. So let's give you guys a tour of some of the models we work on. We work on a 6-model rotation, so every day of the week is a different model, and then it's not always predictable. We've been working on the Centaur here. We did an Appaloosa horse paint scheme on his horsey parts, and we've been working on his armor, making it look like more alligator-type scales and stuff. And then we also, tomorrow, are working on our Kitty Paladin. So we're doing a non-metallic metal style on his armor. So we're using shades of like silvery blue and white and gray to try to suggest a metallic effect on him. He's cute. He's got a little ball of yarn on his shield. It's super awesome. And all of the models are Reaper, by the way. All the models are Reaper, since this is a Reaper show. Then we've got our madam, which with the fancy dress. So we've been doing some freehand on that and focusing on her details. I'm just getting ready to start on the back side now, as we've mostly got the front side dialed in. And then, just for weirdness sake, we're actually working on a model that's not currently available, but I hope they'll bring it back. It's actually a big bust. Pirate Lady bust from ReaperCon last year. She's pretty cool, so we've been working a lot on her. It's my opportunity to teach bust techniques, which are a little bit different when you work in big style from doing the little guys that we normally paint. And then our last one that in our rotation is this magelet, who I'm making kind of, she looks like a court mage to me. So, yeah, glad you like it, Trunor. Yeah, I like busts. Like, myself, my own moniker on my Patreon and stuff is painting big, because I really prefer to do, like, big stuff, the busts. Whenever I buy things, whenever I want things these days, it's always a bust. So this lady, I think, is going to be a court mage. We've just blinged her out. Again, we're using non-metallic metal, so we're using a bunch of yellow and brown and white and dark brown to try to suggest that things are shiny. And then on the back, I've just started putting in some alchemical symbols. We're going to be using a bunch of alchemy symbols back here on various panels and doing freehand. So yeah, that's what we do here. Different one every day. We're always on at USA 11:30 Central Time, AM. And we run for about an hour, hour and a half. So yeah, so we're working on our mage today. I decided I want to do something very loud and orange, because we don't often paint orange cloth here. It's just not a color that a lot of painters tend to put on a model unless it's like a fire mage or something, but I decided I wanted to work with it. But right now we're just blocking in scrolls. I was talking a bit about brushes and brush sizing and shapes of brushes and stuff like that. I'm about to put up a video on my YouTube about that. That'll be free and public. There's all my socials. Quindy linked them in the chat. And there you go. That's the rundown. That's what we do here. Woohoo. Oh, and Ooh, I actually, see now, I should show you. So on my own stream, lately I'm painting a giant wolf, but I did resculpt his face. I wanted to show Cnot because Cnot's a pro. So this is my Wolfie, just really briefly. So he's from Journeyman Miniatures, but his original sculpt is very like kind of humanoid and cartoony, and I wanted him to be more fierce and wolfy. So all that green that you see there is all the sculpting that I did to make his head wider and more lupine. He's a very, if you look at him on the Journeyman Miniatures site, you'll see he's got a very, very cartoony, almost human-ish cartoony wolf face. So now I did the resculpt on both sides, added a bunch of fur. I made his neck longer, and now I'm painting him. So I decided his concept art has him as kind of a golden or tan furred wolf. So I'm kind of sticking to that. So that's just the first set of paint on him. But anyway, that's my current personal project on my own stuff. Alrighty, now back to our Midgelet. Because I white primed it, Pendrake. But then I realized I could still see the green. So I kept it that way because it's easy that way to show people how much work I did on it. So that's why I'm working on mostly one side of the face. After I primed it, I realized I could keep just the white primer over the other side of the face and it can still show the green so everybody can see the amount of work. Otherwise, if I just painted over it, you wouldn't be able to tell. Like, it wouldn't really be really evident. I could tell you that, but you'd be like, okay. But there you can actually see it. So I'm going to do a little bit of lining to separate out the sleeve here from the scrolls. Let's get closer again. Putting a dark line between the sleeve here and the scrolls actually helps to kind of separate them visually for the eye of the viewer, because 28mm is so small. You have to kind of exaggerate stuff like this to really help people to see it. Your model tends to look a lot sharper and cleaner when you do that. So I'll also be lining all over the place, all around here. And since I currently have some brown liner mixed up, I'm probably just going to run with that. Alrighty, so when I'm lining, I'm going to use a really thin brush, really long and thin. This is my Da Vinci Maestro Series 10, size 1, which is one would say my always reach for brush. It's the brush I use more than any other. Especially useful for thinned paint and lining. When you want to get a very thin line, use a brush with a long, thin body. Yes, and the conversation around here runs a lot to puppies. It's going to be running an awful lot to puppies and kitties. But I'm getting a new puppy, and my puppy was just born on Monday. And so I've been sharing pup dates. So if you guys actually, I know you guys love Cnot's dog, right? So, all right, I'll give you a pup date. Pup date. The breeder is sending me pup dates. So let me get the cute picture of Zammy and her babies. We'll just grab one of them. There we go. So this is, hold on, let's zoom out. Gotta have puppies. So they were just born on Monday, so they're little. You can see that Zammy is a shepherd. She's a Shiloh shepherd. And there are all of her babies. So pup date, there are 7. There are 4 boys and 3 girls, and I'm on the list for a girl. So I get to choose from 3 girls, and they're all different colors. And they're all adorbs and tiny and newborn at this point. So we'll do more and then to show you one of them. There are 3 of them are solid black. So this is one of them snuggling up to my friend Bridget, who is my breeder. So only 3 days old. 3 days old, tiny little puppy sausages is what we have right now. So eventually I will be adding a puppy cam over here in the corner. I've got a space cleared out for the pupster to have a camp for when I stream. So you will get puppy cam in 7.5, maybe about 8 weeks. It'll take me a little time to get her back from North Dakota. So yes, so talking a lot about puppies in the coming weeks. I am so excited. It has been over a decade since I raised a puppy. So I've been reading all my books to refresh me about what I need to be on to train her well. My last puppy I trained turned out really well, so I'm hoping I can train and raise a truly exemplary puppy this time around. So I can also line, using my liner a little thinned down with water to shade in here to make the curl of the scroll come out a little bit nicer, and that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, so there will be a new puppy on this stream. I pick her up. Her litter evaluation is the 20th and 21st, and then I'll be driving her back here. So I probably won't be back on until like Thursday or Friday of that week, depending on how the travel goes. But you guys are going to have to do without me for a long time. Like, I'm going to be gone a whole week to do that puppy stuff. So that's going to be a lot. But at the end of it, there will be a puppy. A tiny little 8-week-old puppy. I'm certain she will be adorable. Yeah, you guys will just have to wait. Well, if you're on my Patreon, then you have access to my Discord, where I will probably post at least one picture of the cutes. I'll try to post one picture of each girl before I choose, just to make you guys agonize. All right, so a little bit of, again, a spot wet blend to kind of bring in a shadow. Putting down my dark, grabbing a little bit of my light parchment color on my brush, and just kind of blending the two together. Smooshing, in fact, smooshing them. Grabbing a little bit more light on my brush and smooshing a little bit more. And that gives us kind of a natural shadow there. Yeah, a whole week, because I have to fly out on Thursday. I'm flying out on Thursday. And then I'm going to pretty much have Friday to work with Bridget on some testing stuff. And then on Saturday is the litter evaluation proper. And Sunday is the puppy party, where all the puppy people come to pick up their puppies. And I will essentially, with Bridget, I will help go over like kind of the particulars of each puppy, the personality quirks that people might want to watch out for or be conscious of. And yeah. Then on Monday, I will leave for the long drive back to California, as it's going to be the end of August, and there's a lot of restrictions in the airlines for flying when it's safe or not safe to fly animals in cargo. So essentially, it's very likely if we would have tried to fly the puppy back that our flight would have gotten canceled, or the puppy would have gotten canceled, and we don't want that, especially with how chaotic the airlines are nowadays. So I am just going to drive the 3 days. 3 days of the puppy and me on the road, staying at hotels, eating food that's bad for us. Yeah, you can catch up on the Patreon. Exactly. Or on my YouTube. You could just go and watch all of the fundamentals videos. All right, I'm going to thin my liner down just a little bit. When I'm doing this stuff, guys, I'm honestly using my well palette a lot like a wet palette. So I'm just grabbing some of this and just grabbing a little bit of water on my brush and thinning it down a bit. And then I'm just painting with that real quick. It'll stay wet for, you know, a few seconds. Since I put a lot of water in it, it's probably actually going to be wet for at least a minute, so I don't have to rush. So I'm doing the curls here. If I want a little bit more water, I can just get it on my brush and then just go in while this is still wet. These days I do a lot of working while the paint is still wet. Just because I can. Yeah, my paint here is still wet, as you see, so I can still work with it. And if I want to stay wet, I'll add even a little bit more water. Essentially, you can build pretty decent puddles on top of your well palette if you just need a little spot bit of thinned paint. You don't need a full well. Our puppies are too big, Pendrake. Because Shilohs are big dogs. By the time our puppies are 8 weeks old, they're typically 20 pounds or more. And it would be very uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable, trying to stuff that big of a puppy under the seat in front of us. Usually it won't work. They won't fit in a small carrier like that. And if they would, it wouldn't be good for them. They would be very uncomfortable. So some people will try if the puppy is smaller, but you can't guarantee that. There's only a few busts, Merrick, on Reaper Mini. And I don't know that any of them, because 3 of them were Julie Guthrie sculpts, and they were done for the last Kickstarter, and I think they're pretty much like out, and they haven't been restocked. That one, the Pirate Bust, was actually a ReaperCon special and isn't currently available. We keep bugging the bosses to have it done again. But because it's resin, and because our resin shop we work with is so slammed, we haven't gotten it yet. Other than searching for keyword bust, and I don't know if there's anything really available right now. So if you're not coming up with anything, that's probably part of it. There are, however, a lot of companies that do amazing busts on the interwebs. And if you go down that rabbit hole, be warned, it will be very expensive for your pocketbook. I can speak as one with a box of busts over here in the corner. I don't really have... I have Mr. Grumpy over there, but I don't have any of my other busts around here. Although I am doing one for my Patreon right now. We're doing a paint-along on one called Caledriel from Big Child, and I was just doing kind of a moon elf kind of skin tone on her the other day. I shot a video and was editing it the other day. So yeah, so there are some beautiful busts out there. Run around. The scale, if you're looking for a particular scale, the most common scale for busts is 1/10, 1/10. And 1/12 is also pretty frequent. 1/12 is a little smaller than 1/10. Kind of goes inversely. And they're not bust gray. Yeah, there really isn't a way. Oh, because they're tagged with bustier. Oh, noes. Yeah, there's a lot of really good busts out there on the interwebs, though, Merrick. Like, a lot. If you type in, like, miniature bust 1/10, you're going to get a lot of awesome... I would do models bust or miniature bust, and I would include the scale so you don't get any weirdness, but yeah. Because Reaper is really known for gaming figures for Dungeons and Dragons, and that really is where... that's what people come to us for. That's why we haven't gone big into busts, because Ed likes to very much focus on what our market is. So we've done a few busts just because fans have really asked for them and as kind of an experiment. But they usually don't sell nearly as well as our other models. And so, whereas other companies like Big Child, like which is the elf bust I showed just a second ago, they specialize in models for painters, for collectors, just to be painted, not gaming models. And so they get better results when they do a bust. They make more sales off of it than like Reaper would, just because our market, the people who come to us, our customer base, usually they want D&D models or role-playing game models of some sort. So these are a little harder to get over here. There's a little bit of a wonky bit on the end of that scroll. Yeah, Reaper run by accountants and still around. Yes, this is the point. We are run by 2 accountants brothers, and although Ed, I think, has let his license kind of go because he doesn't enjoy that part of the business. But yeah, we very much are run, like, the bosses are always very focused on our market because it's what's kept us alive and made us successful. So I can't blame them. Even if I do wish that we did more busts, because I love busts, I'm just not, like, I'm not the main Reaper customer, so... It means I have to go elsewhere for my expensive bust models. So I actually did order, I ordered a 32mm figure last night. Which is rare for me, because I paint so much of it on this stream here that usually I don't want to paint it myself, but there was an awesome dancing girl, well, more like a fortune teller kind of model that I really liked, so I ordered that. But yes, so many beautiful miniatures in the world, so little time. So I'm shading a little darker back here. This part is kind of more in shadow. I'll probably even darken down the actual parchment back in this area because there is a dark shadow here and I want to kind of portray that. Makes the model look more realistic if I do. But yeah, especially with D&D being so big, like right now. Thank you, Stranger Things. Like the D&D market's very large right now, so it makes sense to focus on what we're known for. Did I share the Hasbro statistics with you guys? I think I did. My fiance was looking this up the other day because he was curious. Because when Hasbro bought Wizards of the Coast, they were dubious. Like, they mostly bought it for Magic, the Gathering. You know, and Magic has gone in and out of vogue since then. But they originally worried that WotC, who owns Dungeons & Dragons and Magic, might be a liability for them. Because board games were doing so well. Well, now it turns out that Hasbro's the amount of their income that D&D accounts for is like 60%. Or what Wizards accounts for. And a lot of that is D&D. So it's very, very funny. Because also the problem is that, you know, Hasbro is still putting out all those classic board games, but board games have like moved along in the years since Hasbro bought Wizards of the Coast, right? There's so many board games, great board games being kickstarted. There's a bunch of awesome European companies putting out fantastic board games, new board games, right? So people just don't want like Battleship and Connect 4 and Monopoly anymore. So yeah. Oh, another Dragon Bust that'll be coming out for ReaperCon this year. Thank you, Green Users. Anybody watching us who doesn't know who Green Users is, that's Julie Guthrie and Bob Rodolfi, who are sculptors for Reaper. And Julie, of course, does amazing dragons. So I'm super excited to see what the Dragon Bust, even though I won't be there, I'm going to have to beg David to give me his. Since he'll be going and I won't be. Because I will have a new puppy to watch. So the first ReaperCon that I will be missing since ReaperCon was created. Hey, are the ReaperCon t-shirts up for sale yet, guys? Do we have swag up on TeePublic or whatever we're using? Are we using TeePublic? Is that who we use? Quindy? Can you link to the chat for me? Yeah, there we go. It is TeePublic. All right. Do we have a ReaperCon t-shirt up yet? I do not see. I see the general ReaperCon logo one. That's pretty cool. But I don't see a ReaperCon 2022 yet. All right. I'll have to keep an eye on that. If I'm not going, I can still get a t-shirt, right? Yeah, I'm not sure what they're going to do about the swag this year. Even if they don't have swag boxes, Kodiak, they almost always have a swag bag that you can order, even if you're not going. My David is going, so he won't want most of the swag bags, so I will just steal his. Yeah, so I'm waiting for the new ReaperCon t-shirt. Assuming we get one. We don't necessarily get one, but all right. So shading, just getting some of the shading in on these scrolls. To make them look a little bit more 3D. We're just sketching it in. It's very cartoony right now, but that's all right. There. Get a little bit more shading back in there. Can always go and pick those up again, but there we have more shadows. Is the Green Griffin? Yeah, Green Griffin is Bone 6, yep. Usually it says ReaperCon 2022 or whatever. So I saw the ReaperCon 2021 still up there. I suppose I didn't get one of those, so if I might want to get one of those before I get the Barrowgate and Westboro Hills. Thank you, Quindy. So we have a different place to be at in this year's ReaperCon. I feel like I really need to get a shadow right up there. I can see it falling. And in case you're wondering, this really is the kind of stuff that I waste a lot of time on. Not waste a lot of time on, but this is a lot of, when I'm painting good stuff for myself, this is a lot of what I do is I'm, you know, kind of nitpicking a little bit about like shadows and highlights and kind of going back and forth until I'm happy. I mean, that's the difference. I always tell people that's the difference between a competition level model and a model just for fun or gaming or whatever, is just the amount of futzing that you do to it. It's all just that. So for me, when I'm painting for myself, I do a lot of futzing until I'm very happy with it. Because usually I'm painting for myself, I'm painting to a competition level, because that's what I most enjoy, is painting really well. There we go. So that's a more realistic shadow. You can almost see kind of the fall of the shadow now from the edge up here down to there. So that's what I wanted. There. Excellent. And it's a subtle detail, but it looks a little bit darker in person, to be fair. Yeah, there's always a con exclusive. It's true. Alrighty, I think we've got all of that down. Let's actually grab our purple and finish this stuff. I'm going to do a bit of lining. Then I'm going to figure out what I have a potential accent color here, and I haven't really decided what to do with it. There's a gem up here, there's a big gem here, and then there's a scabbard here, and a bag here. So we could... We've even got a little bit of like scroll binders here to hold our scrolls together. So we could introduce an accent color here. And I'm kind of debating in my head what I want that accent color to be. And I might just default to making it like purple and orange just alternating if I decide I want to stick to a strong purple and orange identity color scheme. I may not want an accent color, and that's perfectly okay. If I figure one that... The obvious one would be green, because green, orange, purple, right? But I'm not really feeling the green for this guy, and so I'm really debating it. We will see what I decide. But I'm going to grab my purple and put more... Oh, that's right. I was also considering what color to make the interior of this cape. Orange was not the answer. And I was thinking maybe an off-white or a black. Black does make sense. And he also has, you know, a black beard and everything, so we could do black. I was going to do off-white, but then I realized the scrolls are right up against it. So we may end up doing black on that. I do tend to like to use two strong colors on a model, and then maybe one accent, but maybe not, just neutrals for everything else. I like models with a strong color scheme identity. Mixing up my imperial purple here. which is 9023, which is very good kind of standard purple from Reaper. Because it does tend to be a little bit on the translucent side because it is pretty dark, I'm going to go with actually a 6:1 on its consistency. You could use blue. Blue works fine. It follows the rule. If you look at, I don't know if you're on my Patreon course there, but I put up a handout from my color theory class. It specifically talks about this. One of the colors that is legal to use is always the complementary color of one of the colors that's on here. So blue is the complementary color of orange, so it would be fine. But yeah, I give a set of rules kind of in that for picking your third color. So if you have access to it, then you may want to read that handout. It's a whomping like 10 or 11 page handout that I did for my color class at KublaCon. And I decided to put it up for my patrons as well, because it was a really big one. Every time I do a handout about choosing colors for your mini, I feel like I get a little better at it. Yeah, let's hope that the Dragon Bust is available to everybody. That would be great. Oh, swapping back to my base coat brush. And we'll get our purple in here. And it covers pretty well at a 6:1. Why would I even bother with the 1 drop of water, you might ask, at that point? It still is going to make a difference as far as allowing the paint to flow together better. And when the paint flows together, instead of being kind of clumpy, it is going to self-level, which means you are going to get a smoother base coat. Now here the purple cape does bump up against the purple arm, and so we may want to put a gold border on this purple cape, even though one hasn't been sculpted in. Or we'll just put a really dark shadow and we'll just go for it like that. It's not really a deal breaker. I try to alternate always, but in some small cases, especially on the back of the model like this, it really isn't that important. I can probably suggest enough definition by putting a heavy shadow there, where the cloak is overlapping the arm. And just go in that way. Yeah, it was like last month, I think, Grey Wolf on the, I think it's $10 because it's a really big one. $10 level. I do so few class handouts because they are such a huge investment of time and resources. And so this time I didn't mind it. I figured I would repurpose it as a Patreon lesson when it turned out well. There we go. All right, so we're purple and orange. And the stuff that you see that's gray right now is probably going to be gold. I tend to like to use gold as an edger more than silver. I think gold, you can get it to read better because it is a color. Silver is a little bit harder because it's just the gray. Black is too a neutral. Actually, black and white are the pure neutrals. I mean, read Rhonda's latest handout if you doubt me. Or the one before the current one. She talks about neutrals a lot. It's a whole handout on neutrals. What does your wife say it is instead of a neutral color, Corsair? Or is she thinking it's the absence of color? Is she thinking of light theory? I think that black is perfectly acceptable. Maybe I'm just a weird person that way. All right, I think I do want to block that in black. Speaking of black, our mage thinks that black is a perfectly feasible color. Yeah, that's the thing, Grey Wolf. I couldn't put it at a lower tier. Technically it could go very well in the $5 tier, but I'd already done a $5 PDF, and this one was a lot more work. It was pretty much me going through all of the handouts I've ever done on choosing colors and then trying really hard to make it as, like, to change things, to clarify things. There's a lot of, it's a much better handout. Let's just put it that way. It took a lot of effort. So I couldn't, in good conscience, put it up at a lower tier. Thank you. Yeah, I did debate a lot, though, on that one. But every once in a while, the $10 tier also deserves a nice PDF, so. Although I've been doing a lot of nice PDFs for them lately, so I guess they're not deprived. Okay. Let us paint in the black, framing this, besides the inside of this cape is going to be in black. And I am using pure black for this, I think. No, I'm using dragon black. I lied to you. Normally I would use pure black. But dragon black is very close. It's a little colder. Alrighty. So once we put that in, then it has the nice side effect of framing all of this stuff, right? Making all the rest of this stuff stand out because it's going to be lighter than the black. So it's a good good frame to put in. So black on the interior of a cape. It's not a bad choice. Alrighty. There we go. So now we have that, and that it works just fine. In fact, it repeats kind of the black from up in the beards. So we've got kind of a triangle of black now, and that's great. That actually totally is what you're supposed to do, color composition wise. Alrighty. Let us do, I wanted to do some shading in these sleevelets. There's my Da Vinci. Going back to my brown liner here. Putting another drop of water in it because it's been a while. Kodiak exists to get songs stuck in people's heads. Is that what we're saying? You guys are funny. There we go. So I'm just going to block in shadow here in the sleeve. I'm leaving that little edge though, because the light would hit that, except up here near the top. So just getting that shadow, those lines help delineate everything. They help show you where one thing ends and the next thing begins. Even if you don't think you're going to stay with lining as a technique for your, general painting, it is very valuable to learn to do it. It helps build your brush control faster than any other technique. And it's this brush control that helps you to hit things like eyeballs and buckles and straps and small details. So if you want to get better at that, pick up lining. That, and you may discover that at some point there is a model that you want to use lining on, and then you'll have the skill set. But on 28mm especially, lining is embraced by people for a reason. It definitely helps to bring out those tiny details that otherwise they would be kind of disappearing. There we go. But like things where we've got top of a sleeve and then we've got the border on his cloak. I forget, what's a piece of cloth like this that's worn just over the shoulders? Is there a name for it? There's got to be a name for it. It's not his cape, really. It kind of works into his cape. So again, lining between what will be the gold and the orange. You could black line on this instead of using brown liner. Black lining will give you a more cartoony line in general. A stole? I thought a stole was a neck wrap. Am I wrong on that? I was thinking a cassock or something. A shawl, technically, but I don't think it's meant to be a shawl. Mantle. That sounds right. Red Lynx, I think, gets the ding, ding, ding. This guy's obviously a clothes horse. Got all these different layers. He's all fancified. We're painting a lot of court mages lately. What is this? Fancy pants mages. So again, just more lining. Mantle. Yeah, Red Lynx said mantle. I believe that's the correct term. I knew there was a word for it. I just couldn't remember it. So I'm going to line and bring out these little details in here. I'm going to try not to hit the scroll while I do it. Got a little bit rough on the back here where we've got a little bit of gray still showing see it. So yeah, I need a really grungy wizard like. Or I need to dirty up a wizard a lot. Take a normal wizard and weather him excessively, like I did my halfling assassin. Blorfed a little bit there, but that's all right. This is kind of the shadow area of this arm anyway, so having my lining go over the line there doesn't really matter. I'm going to be putting gold over that, and it's going to make it look a little darker, but since it's in the shadow, that's actually suitable. We call that a washed up mage. Agent Marvel. WoW does anyway. Washed, as the kids say these days. Washed mage. Oh dear. Rainbow, we've got maybe an RPG group starting up. I used to have a D&D slash, we did lots of different games actually in my old group in Texas, back when I was living there. We played like 13th Age, we played D&D, I ran a Werewolf the Apocalypse game because I really like the old World of Darkness. Out here, we have a DM who might run something for us, and that we might do Shadowrun, or maybe it sounds like maybe Coriolis will be our first one to try, which is cool because I've had the Coriolis books for a while, but I haven't been able to do anything with them because I got them shortly before I moved, and then there was a pandemic. So yeah, I play RPGs. I used to also play miniatures, battle games. I could be convinced again, but David has kind of been... He's not really into it. He's not into painting armies, so... David be my fiance. Soon to be husband in October. But I do enjoy... I used to play classic Warhammer, Mordheim, 40k. I still have a little bit of a 40k army. Never got into Age of Sigmar. Never got into Privateer Press, but David did. Yeah, that's impressive, War Shadow, because that's long. That new Curse of Strahd. But yeah, I do Patreon, and this Reaper stream also helps me pay my bills, and I do a bit of Twitch on my own. I do some commissions, though I'm going away from that now more and more. I still have some to boot out before I do that. There we go. I'm just going to double down on that black coat, make it really dark. Danny Kaye was in White Christmas, right? Am I right? Am I thinking of the right person? Yep. Yeah, my brother and I watch that movie twice a year. Once at Christmas and once in July. Best Christmas movie, other than A Christmas Story. Yes, War Shadow. I was still auction minis. I've actually been debating like putting out something up for auction this coming month. I was gonna auction off my Halfling Assassin, but then she won Best in Show at KublaCon, and now I feel like I have to keep her. You know, it seems kind of silly to auction off a Best in Show mini. Because they're kind of, especially because David already has many more minis than me in our miniatures case. So I kind of need to catch up a little bit. Yeah, have fun, Kodiak. Bye, Kodiak. Yeah, sorry about the meeting. All right, we're doing pretty well on the lining here now on the front, so that when we look at it, even from a distance, everything now stands out, except the hat. Notice the hat is not sharp like the rest of it. So your lining really does make a difference. It really does make all of your details a little bit crisper, a little bit sharper. The places on this model that don't look as sharp and crisp are the ones that do not have lining. As I mentioned, lining is an optional thing, but if you don't do lining, then you need to make sure your shadows are quite dark and possibly also be alternating light and dark on your model, which can help with that sort of thing. But yeah, so now I have to figure out something else to auction. I need to separate out the models that I'm going to send to Ron and the models that I'm going to give to sculptors, gift to sculptors, and then look at what else I might do that might be saleable. I haven't put up a bigger model for sale yet, like a bust or something. So I'm considering that. All right, do a little bit more of this. Bringing in the liner even around the purple and orange, even under the hat brim, just because even though that's always in shadow, putting in that little extra bit of dark up there does make things look a little crisper. Oh, our scrub jay is back. Hello, bluebird. The big bluebird really likes that spot in that tree near the fence. Comes to say hi to me in the morning a lot. Although being a jay, he or she does not have a terribly pretty song. I think it squawked at me yesterday. I said, "Hi, bird," and it went, "Rah." Not a songbird. Definitely not a songbird. So again, working on the lining. I usually line after my base coat, before my shading. When I put on my gold base coat, I may wipe out some of these lines and have to reapply them. So often I would wait, but I had the liner mixed up, so I decided to go for it this time. It just means I'll have to be a little more careful with my gold base coat, not to lose my lining or risk having to touch it up, which is not a deal breaker. It just takes more time, right? Yes, California scrub jay is what this bird is. Very pretty big blue bird. Very blue. The biggest, bluest bird I have yet to see. And again, I can be a little messy with my lining here because I haven't painted this part yet. So that's the advantage of doing it before I put the gold base coat on, is that I can be a little messy and I don't have to really worry. Forgot to do my sleeve shadow over here, so let's block that in. Also, I missed the back of the scroll. This side right here, I missed painting that, so I'm going to go and bring my parchment color into that. I'm going to add that dark shadow I was talking about to separate out these sleeves, sleeve from the cape. Boop. My blue tack is not so tacky today. All right. Oh, and I lost my shadow because I brought that back in, so you can see where that happened right there. While that is wet, however, I can bring in a little bit of liner and wet blend that shadow right back in. I'm going to bring a little bit of it over on this side as well. One side effect of lining is that it does make the model look a lot more finished. Even if you only put a solid base coat and line and you do like one highlight on a model, it'll look like 20 times better than if you painted that model without lining. I mean, I'm painting a model for the Bard Song board game right now with Turtle, but Turtle is kind of cool, so I am spending a little extra time. I mean, it really depends. Is it a unit? I'm not a fast painter Corsair, so if I can get in about like 2 hours per model, which is very much less than my normal, like consider that painting stuff for Reaper's gallery and stuff, my timing is probably somewhere between 8 and 12 hours, 15 for a larger or very detailed model. So being able to get it down to 2 is actually quite an accomplishment. But for me, speed is not important. If I'm not enjoying the process, then I just slow down, which means I need to paint in small groups or I won't get that like feeling of completion if I'm going to do like models for a game. That said, for like monsters for Bard Song, I'm planning to do like very, very fast, maybe an hour and a half per mini, maybe an hour, depending. They're kind of monochrome, these hobgoblins, so I might get like done with it, but I mean, I really don't like to rush. Yeah. Thanks, Quindy. I just don't enjoy rushing. So, although I want to not spend a ton of time on these mooks for Bard Song, I'm going to just generally paint them to a decent standard. I'll just try to use things like Zenith and heavy washes to paint them quickly. And then do spot highlights. So it's like I mix up the techniques a little bit more. Keep in mind, though, that my 2-hour paint job is probably a lot better in some ways than other people's 2-hour paint jobs, because once you're familiar with the technique, you're much faster at it. So it depends on, I mean, time is all relative. Remember that as a newer, if you're a newer painter or even an intermediate painter who has not employed speed techniques in the past, it's going to take you a lot longer to do the same level of job as somebody who's really pro and does speed painting regularly, or even who doesn't do speed painting regularly but can do a quick set of spot highlights and make the model look good. Like, so it is also practice of your fundamentals, and this is where actually lining can help you even more, because lining builds your brush control. That's what enables you to do a fast spot highlight on details, and that's what can give a very quickly painted model a really good look. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of people over the years ask me, well, how long does it take you to paint a speed painted model? And it's like, well, it depends. But it's you should never ask like the pro person, like how long it takes them to speed paint a model. Like you're going to get a different, if you ask Aaron Lovejoy, he's going to tell you 30 minutes. If you ask me, I'm going to tell you 2-3 hours. Everybody's probably somewhere between those posts, but that's a wide range of posts, and it's also a wide range of techniques. If you airbrush, you can do it faster. If you zenith, you can do it faster. So again, it's like choosing like the best job, the best tool for the job. But I find that if you can be fast and precise, then you probably can paint the fastest by starting with a zenith, doing a quick sketch on the brightest parts, doing heavy washes, and then spot highlights. Like It's not going to look as good, but it's going to look serviceable. But then you talk to me about like painting armies. I want my models to look good, even the mooks. So I'm probably going to actually end up spending a fair amount of time on them, even though it's like long and grindy. What it really should come down to is, are you enjoying the process? Like a lot of people are just like, I'm going to hate this, and so I want to get over it fast. But that's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be true. I mean, I can enjoy, if I've got like 2 or 3 hours to spend on a mook grunt for an army, then I can still enjoy painting that grunt. If you're trying to make me do it in 30 minutes to an hour, I'm going to be stressed out and I'm going to hate it. So yeah, so it's also, I think enjoyment on speed painting is also a factor. But that is just me. All right, guys, we did a lot of lining, shading, spot blending. Talked a lot about building brush control, had a segue when we got the CNOT crowd in just to kind of show what we're about. Had a pup date or two. So yeah, tomorrow we are going to be, for Friday, it's Kitty Friday. Woo, Kitty! Kitty! We might continue doing our NMMs a little bit on Kitty. I might need to figure out what I'm going to do on the sword at that point. We did block in a little bit of leather, and we started our wood grain here, so I may continue the wood grain as well, because I'm liking how that looks right now. But yeah, so tomorrow is Kitty Friday. Kitty Friday. Everybody have a fantastic one, and I'm going to run off and finish my Patreon stuff. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.